What's good, y'all? Solomon here. Hope you're having a great day. Today's video, we're looking at a game between Eric Hansen and Anna Cramling. Okay, both of which are very, big influencers in the game of chess. Eric Hansen, a very strong grandmaster player, and he shows off just how dangerous the Hippo can be in a smooth and very instructional win with the black pieces. Okay, this was an over the board game. If you're interested in looking at the game live, I'll leave a link to the video that was posted down in my description below. But let's take a look at this. Let's analyze it. I think there's one advanced concept that you Hippo players will definitely want to utilize in your own games. And it's a rare idea. It won't come up much, but it's good to know. Even if you're not a Hippo player, ideas are good, right? When I started this channel, I did not think that learning openings I would never play would help my game. They've helped me more than I can even describe. Okay, let's take a look. Cramling's playing as white. She plays d4, so we're not getting our cow opening. Okay, we're not going to have a cow and a hippo hanging out. It's just a hippo against a chess opening. Okay. Now I usually play the move g6 with the modern, but here we have this move of b6 followed by bishop b7 and e6, right? There's a lot of different move orders that you can get to get into that Hippopotamus Defense setup, and that's what we see here. d6, tuck the first knight, tuck the second, h6. Again, I probably wouldn't play h6 first, but it works, right? It works. I mean, g6, bishop g7. And here I think a lot of players would probably just play a6, okay? In fact, when I started playing the Hippo, I just thought, let's just get our full setup. But a6 here is kind of pointless, right? Because there's really three reasons. The first two, first off, number one, right? Biggest reason to play b5, to prep that move. We can't play it. There's a pawn on c4. Second reason, to be able to respond to a5 from white with b5. Oh, wait, we can't. The pawn on c4. The only reason in this kind of position we actually would play the move of a6, right, is to play c5 without having to worry about knight b5. That's the only reason. So in this case, Hansen, he knows what he's doing, obviously. Plays this move of g5, just starting to advance on the king side of the board. And the game continues with h3, but I would say usually I don't play g5 in the case of me not getting tempo, right? If I get tempo, that's great. I can kick a bishop or a knight or a bishop on h4, tuck the knight really quick, boom, we're good. But I'm usually very worried about h4. But we have to ask ourselves, how many defenders are on d4, right? Now, if there's a pawn here or if there's a bishop and a rook here, then this is a whole different story. But in this case, g5 is okay because against h4, we can kick that knight and play knight c6 due to the lack of defense on that pawn. There's only one piece defending it. We're attacking this pawn twice and we're attacking the pawn on h4, right? If you want to defend one of the, oh, guess what? We're going to take h4, right? We're going to take that. Okay. Yeah, let's say you take on g4, right? In this case, it might look easy to take that pawn, but I actually think it's a better idea to take the central pawn. I like my knights, so I'd probably take with the bishop first, capture back with the knight. We're still putting a lot of pressure on h4. The second you try to defend it, you did save your pawn, but not your queen. Completely winning position for black. And finally, I mean, if you play a move like d5, we can just centralize, right? Centralize that knight, defending g4, which is great. Attacking h4 still if, white wants to play g3. That knight's pretty sad. That's just a sad knight. I don't know how else to say it. So just keep that in mind. That's one of the advanced ideas. I mean, just this move of g5. And just keep in mind, h4, usually this can be disastrous. I also do want to mention that here, h5 could work here. Usually I hate this for black because of bishop g5. And even here, I probably wouldn't play h5 myself because of this eventual move. And it's just a pain, in my opinion. And if we play f6, then e6 is weak. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think of it, though. Are you worried about bishop g5 at some point? Obviously, if white plays it right away, we just snatch off a pawn. But I'm thinking more long-term here, right? But yeah, I mean, in this case, f3. This is usually the move that does the Hippo player in if we overextend like this. But in this case, the rook hasn't left yet. So g3 traps the knight. The knight has nowhere to go. Okay, but if this rook was here, this is not good for black at all. Knight f1, the pawn's just gonna drop. I mean, it's just out there by itself doing who knows what. But in this case, it's trapping a knight. Okay. But okay, that's my take on it. G5 is playable here because of that reason, because of d4 being so weak. h3 was played though. Castling kingside. f5, beautiful move. Not the only move that could have been played, but it's a pretty one. We're threatening to trap this bishop. I can't tell you how many Hippo games I've had personally where I'm up a piece for a pawn at move 12, 13, 14, 15 because of this kind of thing. Obviously, Cramling, very good player. She sees this, so she runs with the queen to give that bishop an escape square. But real quickly, I wanted to warn you guys of this advanced middle game concept too. And I went over this in a recent game, one of my games in which case I was playing nothing but the Hippo to reach the National Master title. I ended up winning the game, but I did make a mistake. And it was a very similar position to this, right? I pushed my flank pawn, I captured back with my knight. I had so much pressure with my bishops and with my knight on the center. And, you know, I was slicing and dicing and stuff, but then d5 happened. I just pushed. But in this case, there's no reason. Okay, in fact, if we do play the move of e5, our light squares become extremely weak. Not a good idea, okay? A better move here is just something like a5, okay? If they take here, we'll take on f3. If they take on a5, we'll take with the rook. Again, if they take on boom, we take the knight, okay? Taking the bishop back is pretty much losing for white. I mean, this is around -2 for black. We're threatening to fork the queen and the king. If you defend it with queen back or something, we bring the other knight in. We can just keep kind of mowing down those pawns. We're sitting at even material. E6 is going to drop, and white is dealing with an octopus knight on f3. And going back, right? Obviously, g takes. Again, we have knight h4. Beautiful maneuver. White should take on f5. In that case, okay, we take back with the rook. If taking on d7, let's get our bishop out of there. We're down a pawn, but we're going to win it back. And we're going to end up with, a really nice position. 2 active bishops, 2 active rooks, a queen that's solid. White with 2 isolated pawns on the queen side. We'll take it. Going back to that move of f5, just wanted to mention that, right? If they play d5, don't feel the pressure to push, right? Just keep putting pressure on the opponent. If they take, that's only going to help you. And there we go. So queen c2. f4 was played in the game. I'm being a little bit nitpicky here, but it's because I want you guys to just think about some more Hippo concepts. The game was played with f4, followed by knight c6. The issue with this is that Cramling was able to play knight e2, defending this pawn and the pawn on b4. So let's think about the move order here for a second, right? I think instead of playing f4 first, we should think about knight to c6 first. If you want to kick our knight, we'll play knight b4. We'll snatch off a bishop. We're up the bishop pair. Both of our bishops are slicing and dicing. The knight can get active. If a3, now we can play a move like g4 or f4. And a lot of players here will just drop the bishop back, right? And by doing this, by attacking this pawn first, they responded to that pawn. Then we kick the bishop back. Now d4 is indefendable, right? We just win it. We just take... if you want to kick our bishop around, we just go right back. We're up a pawn. White has nothing to show for it except pieces that are less active than ours, right? Just an active game there. And okay, bishop d2 is not the main move there, even though I think most players would probably do that. The best move here is b5, but black's still better. Okay, we can take the bishop. We could even play this crazy knight c e5 move, right? The whole idea being, if you take our knight, we take your bishop. If you take our pawn, we take yours with check. If you take our pawn, we take with the bishop, capture back with the knight. We could have captured with the knight first as well, but the issue with that, right, if we go back, if we take with the knight, I mean, this isn't, it's not terrible or anything at all, okay, but knight d4 could be an option. I would also add that if takes, our bishop captures back, the bishop's active, but I think that a knight is more dangerous when it comes to attacking play. So that's why I prefer to take with the bishop first and then the knight, okay? And if we do take with the bishop first, and let's say they play knight d4 or something, okay, now we can defend with the queen, and, knight c5 is still available. The knight can go to either one of these squares, but in that final position that we looked at, right, where we take with the bishop first, then with the knight, that knight's not going to get touched. This knight on c3, it's 2 squares diagonal of this knight. If a knight is 2 squares diagonal of another square, it takes 4 moves to get there. Knights are very well known to be terrible at getting, 2 squares diagonal. So this knight, it's going to have a hard time getting to any of these squares, right? This bishop, take all the time you want. It's never going to get there. The rook, I don't know how you're going to get there. The queen, if you want to take my knight and sack your queen, go for it. This knight ain't going nowhere, and I would say here we should just focus on, developing, improving our pieces. White's pawn structure is absolutely horrible, and if we just keep making subtle, small improvements to our position, black is going to come out on top. Hey guys, I really quickly wanted to tell you about something that we've been working on for over a year. I have partnered with Coastline Creative and we have come out with some exclusive Chess Giant merch. Okay, we got t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags, and more. And if you're interested in getting 10% off, all you got to do is go to my website, okay, and on there you'll get invited to join my email list. Join my email list and I will send you the discount code there. On top of that, if you want to get 20% instead of 10%, all you got to do is become a supporter on my Patreon, become a patron, and you will get 20% off of all Chess Giant merch in the future. Okay, I hope you guys like the designs. Let me know what you think of them down in the comment section below. Let me know any ideas that you have for future, clothing ideas, design ideas, and all that kind of good stuff that we can put on the site. And yeah, let's get back to the video. But all right, we go back to this move of queen c2. So I just wanted to mention that idea, right? If you play knight c6 and they defend this pawn, now you play f4. Oh wait, the pawn on d4 drops. Okay. And if they play b5, that's fine. We just fork that bishop and that queen. We're chilling. In the game, though, we have f4 and then knight c6. So, Anna Cramling's able to play knight e2, but, I mean, still a solid position for black. We have a5 putting on the pressure, capturing, and now e5, right? d5 is played. I personally, my first thought would be to kind of come to e7, but this move of knight d4 was played, and it's a much better move than knight e7, okay? Notice what's happening here. If the white queen runs away, we take on f3. White's king side is in shambles. If they take, which is what she did, we capture back. But this is more than just having a pawn that's taking some dark scores up. We're getting the e5 score, and this is a big idea in the Hippo defense. In most openings, we take towards the center, but in the Hippo, sometimes we take away from the center to activate the bishop, but to also give us e5. In this case, we're activating the bishop a little bit, right? Because it's supporting a very strong pawn, but we're also opening up that e5 square. Now, rook fe1 was played. h5 was a slight mistake here from Hansen. I think a better move here is bishop c8, rerouting that bishop and really fighting for the light squares, because against h5, white should have played e5. And this is a hard move to find. It really is. But I can say from firsthand experience, I've had to be careful about my light squares when playing the Hippo, and you totally can if you do it the right way, but you just have to be mindful of it. Like in this case, white's allowing us to go up a pawn, right? We can take this pawn and go up. Notice that after knight takes d4 happens, right? And by the way, this is better. Okay, this is a better move than the other one, right? And in fact, here we'd probably take and then capture again and then offer another trade again. And we're probably going to run into a drawn endgame if both players play this well. But going back, I could see a lot of players going, you know what, I'm going to take this pawn and go up a pawn, blah, blah, blah. Bishop f5 happens. Our light scores are in shambles. We're not doing well here. This is one of those positions where it looks okay, but then the longer you look at it, the worse it gets. White's looking to play bishop e6 and queen g6, going after our g5 and our h5 pawns. Can we stop it with the queen, right? Can we, can we activate our queen here to not let that, oh wait, the knight falls. Can we play rook, oh wait, in that case, the pawn on g5 falls. Knight f6, the pawn on e5 is weak. Rook e8, bishop g6 happens. There's just so much. But, I mean, white here is almost +2. So that would be a big mistake. So, okay, if e5, knight takes e5 is the best move there, followed just by trading and trading and trading because our light scores are so weak. But, yeah, I think bishop c8 would have been better to already have those things kind of covered. But, all right, we have this move, knight h2, knight e5. Beautiful move. Amazing knight there. c5 is played, g4. I mean, Hansen here just expanding on the king side. Yeah, I mean, h takes is played. We have h takes as well from black. And after c takes, black here's not trying to play heroic chess, okay? Black's not trying to win this game, in 2 moves. Black's just playing solid, right? Slowly adding pressure and a little bit more flame to the fire. Takes back with the pawn. Notice here that queen c7. White trying to trade down queens, which is generally a good idea, right? I mean, if you're getting attacked, trade down queens. But in this case, we can take the queen and take your bishop. And if you take ours, we take your rook. And if you take our knight, we pin your bishop, play d3. d2 is a threat. Bishop c3 is a threat. Mate 9, according to the engine. I mean, white's just done here, okay? So queen c7 doesn't work. Rook b1 was played. Hansen was confused about this move from Anna Cramling, and I get that. I mean, this rook move doesn't really do anything. But what I do want to say is, after c takes, what does white do here, guys? I don't know. I mean, what does white do? It just doesn't seem like there's much white can do here. So, yeah, she makes a move. She was down on the clock as well, so she makes a quick move. Queen h4, activating that queen like crazy. g3, breaking things open. And, yeah, I mean, this game wraps up pretty quick. Obviously, Hansen, a grandmaster player, he saw that he could checkmate her, but, you know, just to get a little troll action in there, we see the move of d3. She moves the queen. He throws in a check just to troll a little bit more, and then finally mates on h2. Okay, very instructive Hippo game. I love how he, you know, maneuvered his knights and how he got that great space on the king side with his pawn structure. But a couple of things just to keep in mind, right? G5, right? When it comes to B5, I'm not generally so concerned about A4, right? Because it doesn't affect my king safety super much. But against G5, H4, this can have a major impact on our king safety. So, you know, H4 is definitely something that we need to be aware of. But in this case, because D4 is so non-defended, it's only defended one time by this bishop, we can kick that knight, maneuver ours. We're threatening both of these pawns. And we have a great game here, right? And just to keep this in mind for you guys, if you guys do like this H5, G4 idea, you know, F3 here doesn't work. G3, thanks for the knight, right? And then later in this kind of position, it might be worth it to not play F4 right away, but move this knight here, attack this pawn, then push to F4, and you just won yourself a pawn. Now, obviously, as we went over, there's some lines and variations that white can go with to avoid this exact position, but all of which are great for black. Okay. You know, a lot of people think that the Hippo is a troll opening, and I think a lot of that has to do with the name, and also just when you look at the setup, it doesn't look super threatening, right? It doesn't look super threatening, but it is. It's a strong opening, right? I played nothing but the Hippo to get to the National Master level. If you are interested in my Hippopotamus Defense course, hundreds have gotten it, and many have told me they enjoyed it. You know, and I put a lot of work into it. If you do get it, I really hope that you like it and get a lot of ideas from it. In there, we have the 4 middle game attacking ideas, grandmaster games, and just overall strategy, right? We even have a theory portion in chapter 9. There's a section where I'm just playing some chess, talking you through my thought process. So I try to give, you know, kind of every angle possible when it comes to the Hippo so that you can improve at it. And if you know nothing about the Hippo, right? If you know nothing, that course takes you from literally not knowing what it is to a good level of mastery. And, right, on top of that, you know, if you're not ready to get a course yet, if you're not super into the Hippo yet, that's fine, right? I have way too many videos on the Hippo here. You know, we're getting closer to 100 by the week. And yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of other content creators that have some good Hippo content out as well. So all I have to say, there's my sales pitch. I'm passionate about the Hippo. I think that openings like the Hippo, systems like the Hippo really don't get enough attention. And that's one of the biggest advantages that you get by playing something like this. You know, an E4 player, for example, they're worried about the Carl-Con, the Pierts, the Scandinavian, the French, the Sicilian. I mean, they're just pouring all this time into these openings. The second you play the Hippo, all that theory's out the door. And they're looking at you like, what are you doing, right? What are you doing, right? Whereas you've already played 10, 20, 100, 1,000, 5,000 chess games with the Hippo. You've studied it. You've looked at videos. Every game that you play, you're taking a lesson away from it. Eventually, you're mastering it, and your opponent doesn't even know what you're doing. A lot of people think it's a troll opening. I don't think it's a troll opening at all. When I play the Hippo, I'm not trying to troll anybody. I'm trying to play the best chess I can. I'll see y'all in the next one. Hey, thanks for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon community for the month of May in 2024. I appreciate y'all a ton. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't thought about becoming a Patreon supporter for this channel before, I highly recommend that you go and check out some of the benefits that you gain by becoming a member. And I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.